When a place gets cheap, there is usually a reason. Sometimes it is collapse, industries leaving, jobs vanishing, entire economic foundations crumbling beneath communities that built their lives on them. Sometimes it is neglect, infrastructure failing, services withdrawing, government abandoning places that stopped mattering to people making decisions elsewhere. Sometimes it is a warning sign people ignore until it is too late, the early indicators of decline that locals rationalize while outsiders already know the ending. But Missouri has towns that break that rule, places that are still functioning, still inhabited, still alive. Communities where people raise families, run businesses, and build futures, yet somehow they stayed cheap. Not because they are booming, not because they are dying, but because Missouri exists in a strange economic middle zone most of America does not understand and cannot easily categorize. Tonight we are breaking down 23 Missouri towns so cheap they should not exist, yet they do. And more importantly, we are explaining why they survived when similar towns elsewhere did not. This is not a relocation pitch designed to sell you on moving somewhere you have never heard of. This is not a retirement fantasy about escaping to cheap paradise. This is the structural truth behind cheap America, and why Missouri contains more of it than almost anywhere else. Let us begin. Why cheap is usually a lie. Across the United States, cheap towns usually mean one of three things: jobs vanished, factories closed, mines exhausted, industries relocated, leaving behind populations with skills nobody needs anymore. Infrastructure collapsed, roads crumbled, water systems failed, schools closed, services withdrew until basic functions became unreliable. Demand fled and never came back. Young people left for opportunity elsewhere, taking future generations with them, leaving aging populations in shrinking communities. In most states, once prices fall significantly, they never stabilize. They spiral. Decline creates more decline. Cheap signals problems. Problems drive away anyone with options. Their departure makes problems worse. Missouri is different. Here, prices did not crash dramatically. They stalled. They plateaued at levels that seem impossibly low to coastal observers, but remained stable for decades. Housing stayed affordable, not because the state declined faster than everywhere else, but because it never overheated in the first place. Missouri missed the forces that distorted housing markets elsewhere. No coastal speculation that turned homes into investment vehicles. No Sunbelt hype cycles that attracted billions in outside capital. No tech-driven housing booms that made normal communities unaffordable to normal workers. That absence matters more than people realize. This created a rare condition: low prices without total collapse. Affordability without the dysfunction that usually accompanies affordability. That is the environment these towns live in. That is why they still exist when similar towns in other states became ghost towns or cautionary tales. Understanding that context is essential before examining any individual town. Bucket 1. Quiet survivors. These towns did not grow fast, but they also did not die. They found equilibrium at modest levels and maintained it through decades when similar communities elsewhere experienced dramatic decline. Sedalia carries railroad town DNA in its bones, the kind of industrial heritage that built communities before highways redirected American movement. The trains still matter here, even if they matter differently than they once did. County seat stability provides an institutional anchor. Government functions, courts, and administrative services create jobs that do not relocate based on quarterly earnings reports. Manufacturing declined here, but it did not completely exit, and enough remained to prevent the hollowing that destroyed similar towns. Prices stayed low because demand never spiked, not because the town failed. Sedalia did not collapse. It just never attracted the speculation that inflated prices elsewhere. That is a different story than decline, and it is more a story of persistence, even if the housing costs look similar. Marshall benefits from anchors that provide stability without generating growth pressure. Missouri Valley College creates educational infrastructure, a student population, and employment that does not depend on manufacturing trends or on corporate decisions made elsewhere. Healthcare facilities serve regional populations, providing jobs that cannot be offshored. No speculation pressure arrived to distort prices. Marshall was never discovered by investors or by lifestyle migrants seeking the next hot market. That protection came from obscurity, not from policy. Cheap here happened because growth was capped early, not because people fled in crisis. The town found its level and stayed there, which turned out to be more sustainable than the boom-bust cycles that destroyed more famous places. Boonville. River geography gave Boonville its original purpose. The Missouri River created commerce routes that towns organized themselves around. That geography still matters, even if its economic significance has transformed. Old money housing stock means buildings constructed when craftsmanship was standard rather than premium. These homes cost less than their quality suggests because they exist in markets that don't reward quality with price premiums. A preserved demand floor kept Boonville from collapse. Enough people stayed, enough institutions remained, enough economic activity continued to prevent the death spiral that claims towns' once decline begins. Boonville survived by staying boring, which turned out to be an advantage when excitement elsewhere meant speculation, inflation, and eventual correction. Yes, Missouri has a Mexico. The name confuses outsiders and becomes a perpetual explanation for residents. Agriculture and logistics kept Mexico alive when other small towns withered. Farming communities around it needed services. Transportation networks passed through it. The town served functions that did not disappear when manufacturing did. Mexico was never flashy. It never attracted attention, investment, or speculation. It also was never abandoned. The people who lived there kept living there, kept working, and kept maintaining community. That continuity without drama produced affordability without collapse. Mexico persists because persistence was always its primary characteristic. Nevada, Missouri, pronounced differently than the state and frequently explained to outsiders, exemplifies the small, quiet, and anchored town model. Service jobs provide the economic base. Healthcare, education, retail, and government functions employ residents without creating the volatility that manufacturing brought to similar communities. Nothing exploded here. No boom brought wealth flooding in. No bust sent it flooding out. Nevada experienced economic stability at modest levels, which meant prices stayed modest too. The town works and it functions. It supplies residents with what they need without offering what speculators want. That combination produces the strange outcome of being both affordable and livable simultaneously. Carrollton demonstrates the classic county seat survival model, a pattern repeated across rural America but executed more successfully in Missouri than most states. The courthouse economy creates permanent employment. County government, courts, administrative functions, and associated services provide jobs that exist because the county exists. They do not relocate, do not outsource, and do not follow market trends. Local ownership, instead of corporate churn, meant businesses stayed rooted. When local people own local businesses serving local customers, decisions get made differently than when corporate headquarters elsewhere optimize for shareholder returns. Carrollton did not survive by accident. It survived by maintaining the institutional and ownership structures that keep communities functioning when external economic forces turn hostile. Cameron benefits from interstate proximity without the sprawl that often follows. Interstate 35 passes close enough to matter, close enough to provide access, connectivity, and commercial opportunity. Cameron never became a truck stop wasteland or a bedroom community consumed by metropolitan expansion. Just enough traffic passes through. Just enough commerce stops. Not enough hype arrived to distort housing markets or attract speculation that would have transformed the town's economic character. Cameron found the sweet spot, connected but not consumed, accessible but not overrun, affordable because demand stayed proportional to what the town actually offered. 8. Clinton. Clinton sits lake adjacent. Truman Lake provides recreational access that similar towns would have leveraged into resort development and price inflation. But Clinton never resortified. It remained a town that happened to be near a lake rather than becoming a lake town that happened to have permanent residents. Seasonal activity brings economic benefit without the distortion that full tourism economies create. Visitors come, spend money, and leave. They do not buy second homes that sit empty. They do not drive up prices for workers. They do not transform the town into something residents do not recognize. Clinton preserved its character by accident as much as by design, and that preservation kept it affordable. If you appreciate economic breakdowns that go beyond surface-level listicles, subscribe to Hard Truth Untold. This channel exists to explain why places actually work, or do not just to rank them for entertainment. Most channels give you the list. We give you the structure behind it. Hit subscribe, and let's continue. Bucket 2, Frozen in Time Economies. They did not recover, and they did not collapse. These towns peaked once, then stopped. They did not experience dramatic decline, but they also did not adapt or grow. They froze at levels that reflect past economies rather than current ones. Poplar Bluff, stalled regional hub. Poplar Bluff served as a regional hub, the place surrounding communities came to for services, shopping, healthcare, and commerce they could not access locally. That role lost momentum as transportation improved and regional patterns shifted. Poplar Bluff did not become irrelevant. It became less central. The surrounding region still needs it, just less intensely than before. Prices reflect stagnation, not abandonment. The town did not collapse. People did not flee. Growth stopped, expectations adjusted, and housing costs settled at levels reflecting reduced demand without crisis-level vacancy. Poplar Bluff exists in economic amber, preserved but not advancing, functional but not growing. Macon. Macon grew up around the railroad. Those railroad routes gave the town its original identity, the kind of industrial heritage that created places where trains decided to stop. Those routes remain visible in the architecture, in the street layout, and in community memory. An aging housing stock means many buildings date from eras when Macon mattered more than it does today. You can find beautiful structures, priced according to current demand rather than construction quality. No new demand arrived to replace what time removed, but no mass exodus occurred either. Macon's population declined gradually rather than dramatically, leaving a smaller community and infrastructure built for a larger one. The result is affordable housing in a town that functions but does not grow. Sixton is a logistics town caught between eras, relevant enough to persist, not relevant enough to grow. Its position along transportation corridors provides economic activity. Trucks stop. Goods move through. Services exist to support that movement. But Sikesten never captured the growth that modernized logistics generated elsewhere. Cheap because growth skipped it, not because it failed. The town works, the economy functions, but investment that might have transformed Sikesten went to places with different advantages. Sikesten survives in the middle, not thriving, not dying, just continuing. Moberly. Education and healthcare kept the lights on in Moberly when other economic sectors dimmed. Schools employ teachers, administrators, and staff. Healthcare facilities employ nurses, doctors, and support workers. These institutions do not relocate based on labor cost differentials or quarterly profit pressures. No upside hype ever arrived. Moberly was never discovered, never marketed, and never attracted outside attention that might have brought investment and inflation together. No downside panic occurred either. The town did not experience the dramatic decline that generates crisis coverage and emergency responses. Moberly exists in equilibrium, stable at modest levels, affordable because nobody pushed prices higher. Historic importance gave Chillicothe an identity. The town has stories to tell about its past, connections to broader American narratives, and reasons to exist beyond current economics. But economic quietness defines its present. The history did not translate into tourism economies or heritage-based development. Those stories exist alongside stagnant growth. Prices are locked in the past. Housing costs reflect economic conditions from decades ago, adjusted slightly but not transformed by contemporary demand. Chillicothe demonstrates that historical significance does not automatically generate economic vitality. The town matters historically, while remaining affordable in practical terms. 14. Kennett. Agricultural dependence created both stability and limitation for Kennett. Farming does not disappear the way manufacturing does. People need food. Land produces it. Communities organized around agriculture have economic foundations that persist even when they do not grow. But agricultural economies do not generate the growth that attracts investment, development, and price inflation. They provide stability at modest levels, enough to survive, not enough to boom. Kennett exemplifies the trade-off: reliable but limited, sustainable but static, cheap because demand matches supply without excess on either side. Lamar is functioning, small, and capped. It is the definition of still here, without additional adjectives. The town works. Residents live, work, shop, and maintain community. Services operate. Institutions function. Life continues in recognizable patterns, but growth ended long ago. Lamar found its level and stayed there, not because of crisis, but because nothing arrived to push it higher. That plateau produced affordability. Lamar costs what it costs because that is what Lamar is worth to the people who live there. Outside speculation never arrived to distort that relationship between place and price. Bucket 3. The warning towns, cheap for reasons people underestimate. This is where honesty matters most. These towns are cheap for reasons that carry real trade-offs. Understanding those trade-offs is essential before considering them as options. Number 16. Cairo. Cairo faces infrastructure stress that affordability cannot offset for everyone. Systems built for larger populations now serve much smaller ones, with reduced tax bases. Deferred maintenance becomes impossible to catch up. Basic functions that other towns take for granted require effort here. Population loss continued past sustainability thresholds. The people who left took economic activity, tax revenue, and community capacity with them. Still inhabited, but fragile. People live here, work here, and maintain community here. The margin for error has shrunk. Cheap here comes with real trade-offs that buyers must understand before committing. Number 17. Charleston. Decline slowed in Charleston, but it never reversed. The bleeding stopped without healing beginning. Services still operate. Schools function. Healthcare exists. The basic infrastructure of community life remains intact. Charleston is not a ghost town or a collapsed community, but long-term pressure remains. Population trends point downward. Economic fundamentals do not suggest reversal. The stability that exists now might not exist indefinitely. Charleston is affordable because its future is uncertain, not because its present is dysfunctional. Housing is cheap in Haiti because demand never returned after it left. The population decline that affected many Missouri towns hit Haiti harder and longer. The economic foundations that might have attracted new residents never materialized. Survival mode, not stability mode. The town exists, functions, continues, but without the cushion that allows absorption of additional stress. Living here means accepting conditions that reflect reduced demand. Cheap is not free. The price reflects what buyers are getting and what they are not getting. 19. New Madrid. Historic significance gave New Madrid a name that appears in American history books. The New Madrid earthquakes from 1811 to 1812 remain among the most powerful ever recorded in the continental United States. But historical significance did not translate into economic reinvention. The town is known for something that happened 2 centuries ago, not for anything happening now. Limited economic options constrain what New Madrid can become. The past is interesting, the present is challenging, the future is uncertain. Affordability here reflects those constraints honestly. Vandalia stopped mid-transition, caught between the past and the future. It is unable to complete either journey. The old economy that built the town weakened. New economic foundations never fully formed. Vandalia exists in between, not dead, but not advancing towards something clearly better. It is stuck in that middle ground. Community remains intact. People live here, maintain connections, and preserve what exists, but the trajectory is unclear at best. The town's affordability reflects that uncertainty. Low prices signal that buyers are taking on risks that more expensive markets have already resolved. Salem. Public services hold Salem together, including government employment, schools, healthcare, and institutional functions that exist because the county exists. But private investment never followed. The business development that might have diversified Salem's economy and generated growth never materialized. That dependence creates stability and vulnerability at the same time. As long as public services continue, Salem continues. Public services depend on funding. Funding depends on politics, and politics depends on factors Salem does not control. Salem is affordable because the economic base is narrow, and narrow bases carry risks that diversified ones do not. Bernie. Low prices in Bernie tie directly to limited opportunity. Affordability is not a gift. It is a reflection of what the town can offer economically. Employment options are constrained and economic activity is modest. The reasons young people leave small towns for bigger cities apply here with full force. But community remains intact. Social connections, family networks, and community institutions continue functioning. Bernie is not a failed place, it is a limited one. That limitation produces affordability. Buyers need to understand what they are buying into, not just what they are buying. Portageville. Agriculture keeps Portageville breathing. Farming provides the economic foundation that does not disappear the way factory jobs disappear. Land produces value. People work that land. Communities exist to support that work. But little margin exists for shocks. Agricultural economies do not generate the surplus that cushions communities against unexpected stress. When challenges arrive, the resources to meet them are already stretched. Portageville persists, but persistence without margin means vulnerability. Cheap reflects that reality. Buyers get what cheap provides and accept what cheap cannot provide. Why this only works in Missouri. Missouri sits in a rare position in American economic geography. Its central location means no coastal pricing pressure. The speculation that made California and New York housing impossible for normal workers never arrived in Missouri because the state lacks the coastal appeal that attracts outside capital. No Sunbelt speculation cycles. The investment that poured into Texas, Florida, Arizona, and other Sunbelt states seeking growth and warmer weather never targeted Missouri. The state does not offer what those investors wanted. No tech rent shock. The transformation that made San Francisco, Seattle, and Austin unaffordable for workers outside tech industries never occurred in Missouri. The tech economy did not arrive at scale. Most states experienced boom, then bust, then hollowing. External capital arrived, inflated prices, then departed, leaving communities with unaffordable housing and declining populations unable to support it. Missouri experienced plateau, then pause, then persistence. Prices reached levels that reflected local economic conditions and stayed there. No external force arrived to distort that relationship. That is why these towns still exist, not thriving, not collapsing, persisting at levels that reflect what they actually are, rather than what speculation decided they might become. Who this is and is not. 4. These towns are not for everyone. Understanding who they serve matters as much as understanding the towns themselves. These places are not for influencers seeking content opportunities. The aesthetic is not curated. The experiences are not shareable in ways that generate engagement. These places are not for flippers seeking quick returns. The price appreciation that generates flipping profits does not exist here. Buy cheap, sell expensive, requires expensive to exist somewhere in the timeline. These places are not for growth chasers seeking the next Austin or Nashville. Growth is not coming to most of these towns. The conditions that generate growth do not exist. These places are for people who understand stability over upside, accepting modest conditions that persist rather than chasing spectacular conditions that might not materialize. They are for people who prioritize cost over hype, valuing what things actually cost over what narratives suggest they should cost. They are for people who prefer reality over narrative, seeing places as they are rather than as marketing suggests they might become. Missouri does not sell itself. The state lacks the promotional machinery that other states deploy. No celebrity endorsements, no viral marketing campaigns, no lifestyle magazines devoted to Missouri living. That is why these places survived. They never attracted the attention that brings speculation, inflation, and eventual correction. They never became investment targets. They never had to perform for audiences that do not live there. And that is why they confuse the rest of America. Cheap is supposed to mean broken. Affordable is supposed to signal problems. Low prices are supposed to be warnings. Missouri breaks those assumptions. These 23 towns prove that cheap can mean something other than failure, that affordability can exist without dysfunction, that low prices can reflect economic structure rather than economic collapse. Which town surprised you the most? Which bucket do you think your town belongs in? Quiet survivor, frozen in time, or warning? Drop it in the comments and be honest about the trade-offs you have observed where you live. If you want the truth about America's regions without the hype, without the relocation pitches, without the fantasy projections, subscribe to Hard Truth Untold, because cheap America exists. Understanding it requires more than listicles.